The first thing you gotta know is that the desert sun in Nevada doesn't forgive anyone. Not even the guy who owns half the cars you see in magazines. Not even if your name is Barrett Langston and you're the kind of man who never accepts defeat. Not in business. Not on the road. And sure as hell not sitting beside a dead McLaren Sabre, worth more than the diner across the street and everybody in it combined. So when Barrett's $4 million machine just rolled to a stop in the middle of Highway 159, engine silent, traffic stacking up, and tourists pulling out their phones to film his humiliation, he felt the sting deep in his bones. A mix of rage and disbelief that had nothing to do with the heat radiating off the asphalt. Or maybe it did. Maybe, for the first time in a decade, he felt small. You ever had one of those days? Inside the car, he's calling everyone he knows, and no one's picking up. His mechanic's gone fishing, the dealership is putting him on hold, and his driver, the only person in his life who actually knows how to change a tire, is off this weekend. He steps out, sunglasses hiding the way his eyes keep darting between his car and the people staring, his pride crumbling just a little more every second he stands there in that $500 shirt, as if looking good could save him now. Across the street, leaning on a battered pickup, there's this girl, not the sort of person who belongs in Barrett's world, not by a long shot. She's an overall stained with oil, boots that have seen too many Nevada summers, her hat cocked low, eyes sharp and steady. Her name is Leia, but he won't learn that for a few minutes yet. All she knows is that there's a man unraveling on the side of the road, and she's got a knack for fixing things, anything mechanical, anyway, because people are way messier. She doesn't ask permission, just strolls over, looks at him with a mix of curiosity and quiet kindness, and says, "Need a hand?" Barrett barely glances her way, gives her the kind of once-over reserved for people he doesn't expect to see twice. Unless you're a miracle worker or an F1 tech. Probably not, he grumbles, voice heavy with defeat. She just shrugs, something like a smirk playing at the corner of her mouth. "I've rebuilt semi-trucks on the side of I-80 in a blizzard. I'll take a look." That's the first twist right there, you know? Not that he'd admit it, but the universe was giving him a lifeline. And she didn't look like any lifeline he'd ever seen. He watches as she pops the rear hood and studies the engine like it's a riddle she's already solved. Barrett tries to tell her how rare this car is, how it's one of only 7, but she's unfazed, flashlight out, hands in places no one's touched since it left the factory. She asks him what happened. Took a curve, accelerated, then nothing. Dead. She hums, almost amused, pokes around some more. After a few minutes of tinkering, him sweating bullets, sure she's about to make it worse, she says, fuel management module. Got fried. There's a backup line, but it wasn't patched right. Give it a shot now. He gets in, half expecting the engine to explode, but instead, the car roars back to life, louder and cleaner than ever. People start to clap, maybe out of relief, maybe because they just watched a billionaire get saved by a 19-year-old in borrowed boots. Barrett steps out, stunned. "Who are you?" She just wipes her hands, says, "Leia. I fix things," and shrugs like she's just handed him a cup of coffee, not resurrected the world's rarest car. He offers her money. She refuses. "You looked like you needed help, not a bill." For Barrett, this is a new world, a world where not everything has a price, and sometimes the right person shows up at the exact wrong moment for your ego. But here's where it gets wild. Barrett doesn't just see a mechanic, he sees possibility. He offers her a job, straight up. Tells her about his company, about this new project building modular hypercars, about changing the game, and you can see the hesitation in her eyes. She's never been farther than Reno, her whole life built in the shadow of these desert mountains. But there's something about the way he asks, like he means it, like he sees her, and you don't say no to opportunity when it looks you dead in the eye. Fast forward a day, and Leia's on his private jet, clutching her only duffel. Nervous as hell, but pretending otherwise. LA is another planet, bright lights, lab coats, and people who look at her like she's an alien. But she settles in quick, fixes things that VE stumped whole engineering teams, rewrites diagnostic code on her lunch break, teaches grown men how to solve problems they didn't even know existed. Word gets out, a story online about the kid mechanic from the desert who saved the McLaren Sabre. It blows up. Prodigy, they call her, but she just calls her uncle every night, keeps her boots on even when the suits show up, uses her new paycheck to buy better tools instead of shiny distractions. There's a twist nobody saw coming. A magazine does a spread on her. Then a tech company offers her a scholarship, and a documentary crew wants to follow her around. She says no to most of it, but yes to one thing: starting a mentorship program for girls like her. She brings them into the labs, shows them engines, gives them hope, because fixing things, she figures, is about more than gears and oil. One night, a year in, Barrett comes into the lab and finds her covered in grease, deep in thought. He says, "You know, if you hadn't crossed that road that day," she grins, "you'd still be sunburned." They both laugh, really laugh, not the nervous kind, but the kind that means something shifted. He tells her she changed everything, and he means it. That month, Langston Motors files a patent in her name. When the first car hits the market with her design under the hood, it's got a little tag: Leia built. Orders pour in from everywhere: Europe, Asia, the Middle East. People want a piece of the story, not just the machine. But she doesn't let it go to her head. Keeps her same old hat. Boots now reinforced with carbon fiber, a gift from Barrett, her uncle's picture taped inside her locker. The new innovation center gets named the Leia Cruise Wing. At the ribbon cutting, Barrett gets teary, tells her, "You didn't just fix my car, you rebuilt my hope in people." She just smiles and says, "That's what I do." So, you see, sometimes the world throws you a curve. Sometimes you're Barrett, stuck and angry, and sometimes you're Leia, walking across the highway with nothing but a wrench and some nerve. Either way, it's about what you do in that moment, who you help, what you build, and how you remember where you started. Now I gotta ask, what do you think? Is real talent about where you come from, or what you do when the world finally notices? Would you have hired Leia, or just written her off like everyone else? Let's hear it. Share your thoughts below, because sometimes the best stories are the ones we argue about long after the engine stops running. Funny thing about becoming the face of a revolution is nobody tells you what comes next, especially not if you're a 20-year-old girl who still gets nervous ordering coffee in LA. Leia thought fixing Barrett's car, and then fixing half his company, would be the wildest chapters of her life. But you know how it goes. Life doesn't hand out finish lines, just new starting guns, and before long, everything she built started getting tested in ways she couldn't patch with a socket wrench. The first shockwave came right after the big rollout. Her name on the patent, the new innovation center plastered all over tech blogs. Barrett's engineers finally sing "ma'am" with something like respect instead of surprise. Then the corporate board showed up. These weren't car people, they were money people, all tailored suits and polished smiles, flown in from New York to assess asset deployment. One of them, a silver-haired exec named Carmichael, shook her hand so hard her knuckles popped. "Impressive story, Miss Cruz," he said, his smile tight as a zip tie. "But let's remember, this is a team game." At first, Leia shrugged it off. She'd always believed hard work would outshine politics, that fixing real problems mattered more than knowing which fork to use at lunch. But soon enough, little things started happening. Her budget requests delayed, her code overwritten by a consultant nobody knew, invitations to important meetings just not making it to her inbox. She found herself back in her uncle's old mindset, measuring each day and problems solved, not just pats on the back received. The turning point came late one Friday. Leia was working alone, like always, when she noticed the diagnostics server logging remote access attempts, weird ones, coming from inside the company's own R&D wing. When she dug deeper, she realized a big part of her cooling system code had been siphoned off, modified, and pushed out in a press release under someone else's name. The press started crediting the Carmichael Group for revolutionary new thermal logic. Yeah, that happened. She didn't call Barrett right away. Pride, maybe, or the old stubbornness she'd carried from the desert. Never ask for rescue unless it's the last option. Instead, she stayed up all night tracing digital footprints, building a log of every unauthorized access, every stolen line of code, every internal memo downplaying her role. By dawn, she had a stack of evidence, enough to take down a boardroom. But here's the kicker: Barrett wasn't the only one watching. One of Leia's mints, a quiet Vietnamese-American girl named Jamie, had noticed the tension, the way Leia's shoulders never quite relaxed anymore. Jamie cornered her in the break room. "You always told us, don't let people walk off with your spark. So what are you going to do?" That question hit harder than Barrett's jet ever could. Leia decided. No more playing it safe. She walked straight into the Monday morning board meeting, mid-presentation, in boots and coveralls. The room froze. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, voice steady as the desert wind. "But I think the company deserves to know where innovation really comes from." She plugged her laptop into the projector, scrolling through her findings, timestamps, source code trails, board emails. Carmichael tried to cut her off, but Barrett waved him silent. The room crackled with tension. Some folks whispered, others just stared. "I didn't come here to play politics," Leia said, her voice suddenly trembling just enough to feel real. "I came here to build something that would last longer than any one person, any one story. If you want to put someone's name on it, put all the names, the engineers, the interns, the ones who stay late fixing your mistakes." For a second, you could have heard a pin drop, and that's when Barrett stood. "She's right," he said, voice raw, eyes locked on Carmichael. "This company is about merit, not boardroom maneuvering. If anyone here disagrees, there's the door." One by one, people started nodding. Some even clapped, awkwardly at first, then louder. Engineers, interns, the cafeteria staff peeking in. Barrett's words still carried weight. Carmichael, cornered, was forced to step down that afternoon, along with his cronies. Twist is, Leia didn't celebrate. Instead, she met Jamie and the other mints at the new innovation wing. This time not as an icon, but as someone who almost lost her way. "Nobody builds anything alone," she said. "And if you see someone stealing your spark, you don't just take it back. You share it wider, louder, so nobody can put it out again." That day, she proposed a new policy: open credit for every project, mentorship programs for anyone who wanted in, not just the golden kids. Barrett offered her a new title, VP of Innovation. She laughed, told him to put it on the business cards, not her door. She started taking days off to visit her hometown, working with girls who still thought engines were magic and STEM was a boys' club. Sometimes she still fixed cars for free, just to remember where she started. "You know, I keep thinking success isn't a destination, it's a moving target. The moment you stand still, someone's already plotting to run past you, or worse, steal the finish line. But if you fight for the right things, fairness, credit, community, sometimes the story ends with more than one winner. So what about you? If you saw someone getting robbed of their spotlight, would you speak up, or would you play it safe? And does justice mean a big, public takedown? Or is it something you build, every day, choice by choice? Drop your thoughts below. Let's see how you would rewrite this ending.